Hello and welcome to the Super Rugby Review Show. And yes, as it's finals week, there is only one game to review. Sure, we did jump on straight after last night and give you a post-match reaction, but that was with people watching it on TV. Tonight, though, we are going to review the game from inside the ground because we have got Ashwin with us. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm good. Well, I'm sore, but we'll get it. We'll get by.
Sore? I mean,
Yeah.
you weren't playing. You were just watching from the West Stand, okay? It's
No,
not like you weren't taking your hits.
I got an elbow from one of my kids last Saturday in the cartilage that joins the rib bone to the sternum. And yeah, it's pretty painful. It's taking a while to heal. You get old, these things take a long time to heal.
Oh, good evening to Simon in the live chat, and then also what has Stephen yes, Stephen's on the road in our mobile studio or his car, and Stephen, I know Ashwin was there because I saw a photo, but were you actually in the ground last night, or did you not make it in the
end? No, I didn't make it. I've been extremely ill for the last couple of days, so just had to shoot across town and pick a couple of things up. But I did watch the final. Yeah, it was good. It was a little bit stressful.
Okay, well, it sounds like we'll have you for a short while at least until your voice gives out. But so hopefully you survive not too long. I'm also on the hot lemon and honeys because I'm got a bit of head cold. But
you guys fellas got COVID, Al?
You guys might have COVID up there in Auckland, but us guys out in the out in real New Zealand, we don't get COVID out here. You know, it's something that you guys up in Auckland just.
Hey! Started in Invercargill. Wedding party in Invercargill, mate.
Well, yes, we haven't got Cornflake on tonight, so we can't talk about Invercargill. So there we go. Yes, we've made Stephen homeless. That's right. He's sleeping.
We're building him a tiny home.
We are. Well, I'll probably be doing a lot of my shows from the car in the future, just doing a couple of courses in the evening. So, yeah. But I am glad the season has pretty much come to an end, and we're into the international stuff, aren't we?
Well, international and also club finals as well. So yes, we do have parts of it. Is Stuart Island part of the car? I'm not sure about that, Simon. Not sure, quite sure what that. But there we go. So yes. Anyway, we had the final last night, and one person that did enjoy himself quite clearly is Paul Alexander. He runs the Blue Supporters for Life Facebook page and was invited back by the squad or by the club to join in the post-game celebrations. And yes, we saw him drink. He's got photos of him drinking from the cup and photos of the players. So yes, a fantastic day. I mean, the first day, the first competition, first tournament, the Blues have won, as we said, since the Brisbane Tens, Ashwin. I mean, this was obviously you go back a long way. The Blues, I mean, heady days, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of like that'll sit proudly next to the trophy, the Brisbane Tens trophy now. So yeah. Looking forward to placing it there, making some room. The shelf.
Ashwin had forgotten about that until I mentioned it today.
Well, we'd forgotten until Simon Hughes mentioned it last night on the show. But so this is actually, I mean, you were searching around for what this was, but this was the first trophy that the Blues have won then without Carlos Spencer.
Well, without Carlos Spencer and without the hand of Graham Henry.
Graham Henry wasn't involved in the Brisbane Tens, but Carlos Spencer came back to play.
True. Good point. Yes, absolutely. That is a good point. Before he shifted down country to the Hurricanes. So, absolutely. The first trophy that we've won without Carlos Spencer involved, and the first Super Rugby title without Graham Henry being involved.
I guess so. How big a deal do you think is that? I mean, has the issue been over the years? Do you think that finally we got a good coaching setup, or what's do you think that's been part of it?
Oh, look, I think, it's one of the things I actually thought about today, around obviously actually some conversation around something else actually and involving other Super Rugby teams. But, it's not just about having the cattle, and it's actually the coach actually does make a difference. And we're seeing that in other Super Rugby franchises. So if we go back to the start of Super Rugby, the success that the Blues had was with Graham Henry involved as the coach, and we've seen his legacy as he's been involved in other sports teams. And you go back a couple of years ago when Auckland won the NPC title, again Graham Henry was involved. And then the obvious one, I think, more obvious, is that you move to the Crusaders, and 9 years, I think it was, without a title. And you look at Todd Blackadder, who was a coach for a very long time there, never picked up any silverware. And then Scott Robertson comes along and gets 5 on the bounce. The Chiefs really going nowhere, made one finals appearance under the current All Blacks coach, and got absolutely smashed by, I think it was the Bulls in South Africa. And then Dave Rennie comes along and picks up 2 titles in a row. And then you take a look at it, it's coach and cattle, because you got Warren Gatlin now at the Chiefs, and last year they struggled. So look, it's when people say you've got all the manpower and everything. I think when you look at those as examples, I think if we looked at South Africa with Jake White's involvement in Super Rugby teams, you'd probably see the similar things happen there as well. As the fact is that quality coaches don't just bring out, they take their players to another level. And Scott Robertson's probably the best example of that. Again, the Crusaders, how many years without a title, and then 5 on the bounce until the Blues finally came along and took one out of their midst. Well, I didn't even take one out of their midst because they didn't make it to the final.
One point we'll make about the Chiefs is that both those titles were when Wayne Smith was there as assistant coach as well. So,
again, so I mean, like it sort of does complement the argument of the fact is that the coaching staff or the management staff does have a big influence on the success of that team.
Absolutely. So yes, you say. Simon says, "What's Graham currently doing right now? You could help with Australian rugby." Look, Graham Henry, he obviously was a pundit during the Rugby World Cup for Spark Sport, but I think he's still involved with Auckland, isn't he, guys? Stephen,
no, I don't believe so. Not to the level that he was in 2003. You're on mute, Steve. You're on mute, Steve. Steve, you're on mute.
Sorry, guys. coughing. So I was on mute.
Oh, you're on mute again.
I was about to say I don't think Graham Henry is involved with the Blues, but I know that John Hart, I think, is on the board of the Blues, or in some capacity. I did see a picture of him maybe just stepping into the dressing room. Maybe Paul Alexander can confirm that, given that he was in the dressing room till about 3 this morning. Listen, I think it's just a case of probably a little bit of the stars aligning, and all of a sudden, I think probably if you look at the Blues team, they've never had a whole lot of depth. I think they've probably had a good 15 to 23. All of a sudden, they've had a bit of depth. You look at some of the injuries or the unavailabilities that they've had, but they've managed to navigate their way through. Probably about three or four key guys out. You had Ofa Tongafasi out. You had Tom Robinson out. Caleb Clark is obviously thrown in his lot with sevens, and a couple of others that don't come to mind. All of a sudden they've got depth to cover, depth that they didn't have it in the past. If you probably think back to John Kerwin and both Pat Lam, there were times there where they had a lot of injuries and they never had the depth of quality there. And all of a sudden, these guys that have been around for a while have now become leaders in the team. You're talking about the Patrick Tuipulotos and of course, Tongafasi's and people like that, but also, Tom Robinson been in the team for a couple of seasons. So I think it's just a case of the stars just aligning at the right time. And boy, given that they've won this title, and I think it is important for this team. Maybe for us, we probably think that would have rather won a Super Rugby Aotearoa, but I think for the sake of this team and its supporters, we'll take this trophy every day of the week.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, Auckland is what is a quarter of the country, and if the Blues kind of area population of it at least, and to have not been in the finals since 2000, or not to have won a final since 2003, really is and actually not to be in a final since 2003 is it is below standards to what Auckland or what the Blues should be achieving, really.
Well, the thing is, there is the fact it's actually detrimental to New Zealand rugby, and one of the conversations had on Twitter today is the fact is that when you look at you need top level rugby to be successful to get the kids inspired to join up to play rugby, and when we look at those South Auckland clubs that we've got out there, and they're struggling to put junior teams together, apart from Papatoe, which had some really good numbers, but that's because they've done a lot of work to create that. You look at the ETs, the Manukau's, and one other club that slipped my mind. They're struggling to put junior teams together, not senior teams, but junior teams together. And then their counterparts in the 13-man code in that area are smashing it. And so that comes down to the fact is that if you haven't got a successful team to follow in around Auckland, what are they? They're going to be watching the other sports, and that's where they go.
I'm not sure the Warriors are a successful team, but anyway, let's talk about the 13.
Well, it's league in general, mate. It's league in general. The way that they market the sport and everything is just streets ahead of anything that rugby union does.
So when you count the Blues area, are you counting Manukau as well? Yes and no.
Yeah. I agree, Paul, because if
Yep, carry on.
Go, Steve. You're clearly on a bit of your own.
Paul, I was about to say, I agree with Ashwin with regards to a lot of the marketing and the social network stuff that the Warriors actually do. If you, definitely. Yep. I was just basically about to say that I agree that the Warriors do a wonderful job with their social network. I think they've got something like 500,000 followers on Facebook, which is pretty incredible in the scheme of things. And I think it might be almost double the size of what the Blues are following audience, regardless of their results. So it just shows they have got a following and do some really good work. So it's really important that the Blues work even that little bit harder to basically stay in that particular frame.
But not just the Blues, right? It's an issue with the NZRFU and the neglect effectively and sorting out issues for so many years in this region. And at the end of the day, they're not resolved because we know what's happening, with what we hear with what's happening with Auckland Rugby and behind the scenes. There's issues there. So their biggest market, and they're neglecting it, is to their detriment. But hey, look, let's come back to the game yesterday, I reckon, and focus on that. And at the end of the day, it's great. People talk about the fact is that the Crusaders were unbeaten and didn't make the final. Well, all New Zealand teams played all the same teams, so they had the same amount of opportunity to create that points differential, which everybody knew was going to come down to was the amount of bonus points that you could accumulate while you were playing. We knew that the Crusaders were going to go through unbeaten, and dollars for donuts. The rest of the New Zealand teams, obviously the Hurricanes and the Chiefs, didn't quite manage it, but with the Highlanders and the Blues did, in terms of they were going to go through unbeaten against the Australians, and it was going to come down to the bonus points and points accumulation. So at the end of the day, all the teams had that same opportunity. When you look at the Crusaders in particular, they had the exact same home games against the same home teams that the Blues did. So, and you look at Braden Ennor running down 40 meters out, nobody in front of him, and he drops the ball. And that's their road to the final gone. So at the end of the day, I still think it's a valid win and as I said, a morale boost for the club, and something to really now use as a launching pad to look at the success. As a Blues fan, you're happy that we've finally done it. But we've always been, and all the Blues fans that I know, they live in the moment in terms of, yep, we've won the final, yay, let's celebrate it today. But really, tomorrow is about how do we repeat it next year. I don't know any of my mates that are Blues fans that sort of basically live on a trophy win for a year and go, yeah, we won a trophy back in this date. It's always looking forward to how do we do it again.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, all the teams came into this. They all play by the same rules. They all have the same opportunities. So yes, it's absolutely it's a valid win. Now, to say, and I don't think anybody is, but if you were to start saying, oh, because the Blues won Super Rugby Tasman, they're the best team in Australasia, that would be a different ball game. No, they are. You couldn't justify that off the back of this win, but they are definitely deserving champions of this tournament. There's a difference. There's a difference there. On the day they won the tournament, it's a bit like saying, just because you win the Rugby World Cup doesn't mean that you're the best side for the next 4 years. Again,
you obviously haven't been on the right Facebook groups watching all the South Africans going off.
Yeah. Oh.
Haven't played a game in 3 years, and it's just like, they still deserve to be number one team in the world. Yeah, you're right.
But anyway, on to the game and the atmosphere. So pre-game, Ashwin, 36,000. It must have been fun walking up to the ground and seeing those numbers and feeling the atmosphere.
I didn't see the numbers walking into the ground because I was there as the gates were opening. So, you get a dribs and drabs coming in. But look, I mean, it was great to see the people coming in. But it's interesting. Eden Park, for those guys that haven't been there, it's a venue where, like, people now seem to, like, you'll get half the attending crowd that will come in and take their seats, and the other half that basically, it's about 10 minutes to kick off or 5 minutes to kick off, and all of a sudden they stream in to their seat. And like, so up until 10 minutes or 15 minutes until kickoff time, you're looking around and the ground's still half empty, sort of thing. You're looking at a crowd of 36,000 for the final last night, and you're looking at about 15 minutes to go, and it's like 36,000, really? So yeah, they all stream in down the aisles with about 10 to go. But look, I mean, it was a great buzz there, and it was good in atmosphere. Unfortunately, obviously, with the way that the pre-match setup was run, they couldn't have the helicopter flying in. So that was something a little bit different, but because we've had a helicopter flying into the stadium delivering the match ball every game. But it's they have 36,000, which is the biggest crowd since COVID lockdown broke up, and we had, I think it was against the Hurricanes last year, we had 40-odd thousand. Yeah, that was great. It was fantastic to fill that much.
40-odd thousand against Hurricanes. Wow, I can't remember that.
Yeah, it was around the 40, just over the 40,000 mark for the first game after lockdown. We had the whatever it was, 6 or 8 week lockdown or whatever it was, and it was the first Super Rugby game, and it was about 40,000.
Yeah. As I've said a few times, we can't lock down the whole country for 3 months every year just to give good Super Rugby crowds. But it's kind of telling, isn't it, that actually, yes, a smaller crowd than a regular season game last year against Hurricanes. So yeah.
And I mean, like, I had a discussion with my mate, and it was Pierre as well. And last week, I sort of said in jest, really, I mean, they won't get 25,000 to the stadium for the final, and he's like, oh no, there'll be 30. Now the reason I said they won't get is like, the reality is that game should have been sold out. So it's a final. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what, as you said, the final is you still made it there, whatever, and it didn't sell out. And you got to also realize that basically you're getting 4 kids tickets for free for every adult ticket that you bought. So and saying that, there weren't truckloads. The stadium wasn't full of children. It was still pretty much adults, but that's the sort of thing. So whilst 36,000 is good, the reality is it should have been a sold out stadium for a final. And that comes back to what we talked about before, and the fact is that, hang on, there's an issue there that still needs to be addressed in terms of rugby and where it's headed to in New Zealand's biggest city.
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, one of the commentators said during the show that it was great that the Super Rugby franchise is being generous with ticket prices. It's like, no, they're being generous with ticket prices because they can't sell them. It's nothing else to do with that. So yes, it had nothing to do. It has nothing to do with them being generous per se. It's about trying to get people in the grounds. So yeah, good crowd, good atmosphere, relatively speaking. There, the Highlanders made the better start to the game and settled in there. Interesting that the Highlanders did a haka, but the Blues didn't, and was a little bit surprised by that.
To tell you the truth, yeah, look, I'm probably going to get offside here with some people listening, but at the end of the day, it's Super Rugby. It's not first 15 rugby. We just wanted the game to start. We weren't interested in the haka. It's not the All Blacks. I'm sorry, but everybody's like, oh, what? Come on, just get the game started. I'm sorry, and that was the feeling around me as well. It wasn't just an individual's opinion, and it's just like, yeah.
It makes it a bit more of a sense of occasion having the national anthems, national anthem.
Oh, look, the national anthem, yes, it's a final and everything, but now we're sort of getting into the hakas and that. It's just like, yeah, I mean, yeah. One of the things is that when we go to the 1A competition, when the haka started to get involved, it's just like there became a lot of pre-match for one of that. And at the end of the day, we're not going to watch a couple of haka contests. We're going to watch a game of rugby.
Okay, well, there is that, but I'd say I thought it was interesting because and I talked about it last night on the fact that when the Lions came round, the Highlanders gave a sword and the Blues gave a Maori symbol as the trophy, and yet it's the guys with the sword who do a haka and not the Blues, which I thought was kind of like was a bit interesting. But anyway, so. I'd say, hey, each their own. It was pointing out that you got a lot of people like, Ash Dixon and stuff is kind of the soul of that team, who's captain Maori All Blacks. So unsurprising that they did it. But they settled in better than the Blues. Blues didn't really settle in very well. Were a bit disjointed early on, but this game was really about defence by the Blues and not being able to finish off was how I kind of read it. They didn't allow the Highlanders one clean line break in the whole game.
That was the interesting thing. I mean, like, obviously, whilst the Highlanders he did get ahead with about 10 or 15 to go. As a Blues supporter, it's like that you couldn't see them scoring a try. I mean, obviously, anything can happen. Bounce of the ball, an intercept or something like that could have happened, but the reality was that, apart from sort of like 10 minutes in the first half and 10 minutes in the second half, the Blues were dominant right through that game. And through one reason or another, they weren't finishing their opportunities. And that's what it really came down to is just like, if the Blues had finished the opportunities, we'll come to one of the moments later. But I mean, like, if Hoskins didn't knock the ball on over the line, and I'll go on to that one a bit more later, but if he doesn't knock on the line and scores that try, I think the score would have blown out a bit.
Stephen?
First thing I was going to say is just congratulations to Ash Dixon for playing 100 games for the Highlanders. I think that's what the haka was actually. Well, no, I don't think. I know that's what the haka was for. Listen, this game, I just want to pay the Highlanders a bit of due respect. God, they had a lot of guys out, and to end up where they were, and boy, a lot of key guys out as well. If you think about the back row that they didn't have there, I think there's Frizzell, there's Michaeli, Liam Squire, just in their back row alone. Whakatava, Connor Garden Bishop, Alai Marlaw. They are a plucky side. No question. I tend to agree with Ashwin that in terms of the better team, yeah, the Blues were the better team, but boy, watching it at home, you were asking the question, man, how are these guys still living with the Blues? How are they actually still in the game? They were in the game because the Blues weren't clinical enough in terms of closing down their chances. And I was sort of hoping along the way that it wouldn't come back to bite them. I've always complained about their backline attack this year, and I think they've bullied a lot of sides, and they've got away with it, because a lot of those Australian sides, really and truthfully, physically, did not front up in this tournament, and they got away with it. It's as simple as that, which is okay if you want to play like that. But I think moving forward, you're going to have to develop your game a heck of a lot more than being a one-trick pony.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, one of the things that, I mean, and as I said, it's about developing the game going forward for the Blues, because one of the things that was happening, and we saw it much clearer for where I was sitting in the West End in the second half, is that especially on the try line, of which the Blues got down to the try line a few times, is that Highlanders side, around the fringes of the ruck, were well offside, and we're not getting on it. And that's so since I brought it up, that Hoskins Satutu one, Billy Harmon is clearly offside on the side of the ruck, and is the one that takes the ball out of, or knocks the ball out of Hoskins' hands when he's going over the line. So, it was like, that they were getting away with quite a bit around that ruck and offside line. But the Blues should have dealt with that better. They should have dealt with that better. And that's the learning exercise that they should take away from that game, is that we had the opportunities, we should have done better, and we should learn from, okay, if they are fringing around the rucks, what do we do? What's our plan to negate that, or to sort that out? So, yeah.
Yeah, look, with 12 clean breaks by the Blues, they had the opportunities to put this game away and to be out of sight, but they didn't. Is kind of, it was big problems here. You've mentioned the refereeing, so we'll move on to have a quick chat about that, because we could end up spending the next 2 hours moaning about the reffing. Because it wasn't a strong call by the refs last night. We had quite a few, something like 4 or 5 probably decisions that were reversed after he's made the decision, which I think leaves a lot of the, and one of those was off the back of the Highlander, one of the Highland, probably Aaron Smith, reminding the referee of the laws. So it wasn't a strong call by Fraser last night at all, to be honest.
No, I mean, and it set the tone. He set the tone quite early, didn't he? I mean, it was that high kick. It was the high kick which the Highlanders took. He takes 3 steps forward into the tackle, and he says, it's the catch from the kick, so it's a maul to the Highlanders. This is like, no, he ran into the tackle, therefore he held up. It was Blues ball. So that actually set the tone for quite a lot of the rest of the match, basically. And
the commentators didn't help in the fact that for those on the TV, they're a waste of time. Some of the reverses were correct. So I mean, I'm not saying that he shouldn't have reversed some of them, but I just say it led to you seeing him not coming across with a strong presence on the pitch.
It's just a shame that the TMO, when you actually see a forward pass, can't intervene. The penalty that led up to the Blues penalty just before the break, off a clear forward pass. It was basically out of the. It was so clear. We all watching at home said, "Whoa, that's forward." They missed it, and that was 3 points, and boy, that was 3 really, really important points in the scheme of things. I don't know if the Highlanders really, at the end of the day, got the run of the play. Yeah, you could arguably say.
Oh, I don't know about that, Steve. I mean, Ash Dixon got away with the red card. That is a clear red card. There is no mitigation there.
To be honest, if it was a red card, I would have turned the game off. Would not have.
You could have turned the game off, but hang on. We've had this argument before on the show. Is the fact is that you've got the rules. You can either go to state of origin rules. We know what I mean by that, or you say these are the rules and you play them, right? And the fact is that they've got a rule that says if you make direct contact with force to the head, it's a red card, and they use the softest of explanations to mitigate that down to yellow.
What I don't want to offer on these shows, I want to have a sense of impartiality on these shows, and don't come across like a cheering supporter type person. And that's why that's what for me just adds a little balance. Listen, at the end of the day, don't get me wrong, the better team won last night, but. Like I say, I give the Highlanders credit, because when you consider the
number of players out,
that they had, the personnel and who they had out, wow, to stay in the fight. I totally admire them and they are a side very much built around their two leading heads, who are absolutely amazing. Like I say, yeah, the officials, they definitely got some things wrong last night, but I think at the end of the day, at the end of the leisure, I think there would have been these would be seriously more talking points if the result had gone to the Highlanders. I suspect.
Yeah, no. Look. Dixon's was red, but then again, so was Bryce Heames. Bryce Heames was also red. So
no, because they clearly go in their commentaries again. Look, I know what you're saying, Steve, about not keeping impartiality, but I'm going with what the conversation that they had. I watched the replay because you go to the ground, you want to come home and say, "Hey, did it happen as the way I saw it?" So I watched the replay, and you hear the comms, and the comms clearly go, "Yes, Nareki has bumped shoulders with him, which has put him off balance, but he's been careless." How are you careless if you've been bumped off you've been bumped? How are you careless if you've been bumped?
Anyway, for me, he was bumping Nareki as much as Nareki. So he was getting involved.
Hang on, I'm going with what the officials are saying and what their reasoning process is. Right, that's what we're talking about. And that's how you get to it.
No, okay, yes, but as we're trying to say here, look, we think the officials had a bad night, and they got that one. Yes, according to what they said, they made the right call. The problem is what they said and what actually happened were two different things. No.
According to what they said, they still made the wrong call because if Nareki had bumped shoulders. No. What my point is that if it was careless, if he was careless, you're right. It's a yellow card. At least, right? Okay. Yeah. No, I'm saying it's a yellow card at least. Right? At least, okay. If he was careless, it's a yellow card at least. If he bumped shoulders, he's not careless. It's their process and they're talking through it, and they're actually getting their process wrong, and they're making their decision making.
Yep. Well,
which is why things should be put on report in the story, and then you can deal with it away from the game. That way, it doesn't have a dramatic effect on the game. That's been my point. Even for a red card infraction, I think it should be a yellow card infraction immediately, and then basically
have a look at later
on report. Put it on report. Look at it later, and then come up with the severity of the penalty, because at the moment it's having far too greater effect on every game of rugby that we watch.
So so we talked about this before the game, so it wasn't hindsight and all that sort of. They didn't pick the best referees or the best officials for this game. The best officials for this game would have been Australian.
Yeah,
clear as day. Our officials through Super Rugby Aotearoa and into Trans-Tasman have not had a good season. Whereas whatever you can say about the Australians is the fact that they've been consistent in the way that they have refereed the game. And they didn't change from their Super Rugby AU into Trans-Tasman. They didn't change the way that they were officiating, whereas our guys did. From the start of Aotearoa to the end of Trans-Tasman, the way that they officiated the game was totally different. And so if they'd picked the best referees for the game, then it would have been a better situation overall anyway.
Yeah, there's been a lot of comment on social media that's basically the Super Rugby, the New Zealand refs are basically deciding not to give reds, full stop. And when play heads up, it goes international. We have international refs. It's going to be interesting to see whether the All Blacks get a bit of a wake-up call as to how the game is reffed by the rest of the world.
I think the All Blacks could be in for a rude wake-up call if they don't adapt to what is going to be ruled. If they carry on with the way that they have done at Aotearoa level, at Trans-Tasman level, then we're going to see some red cards that the All Blacks are going to get.
So not great. Not great reffing last night on that one. We're going to disagree on what colour or if Heem should have got a card, but that's that's fine. Some of the players then who did have good games or big games, and I'm going to start with Harry Plummer, not one that we would normally talk about, but he came on for Terry Black in the first half with a HIA. then came on refereeing. So came on as an actual replacement, knocked over his penalties, and led the Blues to victory.
Clutch player, big game player. That's all you can say, really. I mean, you go back again to, I think it's 2018 when we're at NPC final, Steve, and he knocked over some big goals from out wide. And again, both the kicks that he got, I mean, like when we got the penalty, the Highlanders had gone in front, and we got basically back of the kickoff, and we got a penalty pretty much straight away, and it's out wide. And we were saying, hey, look, it's a low percentage play to go for poles because it was so wide out. And we know Harry Plummer's kicking can be hit and miss. So we're saying go to the corner. So it's like, nail biting stuff when he actually went for goal.
I actually thought it was the right idea, right decision, simply because if you miss the kick, you actually stay on
22.
You stay on attack, principally. But yeah, I think for him it exercised a couple of demons from a few years ago as well, where he had two opportunities which were very kickable penalties against the Crusaders. I think it was to knock them over, and he pretty much got the yips that day. So yeah, he came on, got two clutch plays. Full credit to the guy. Can't say I'm a Harry Plummer fan because I don't know as a first five where he fits into the scheme of things. Excuse me, moving forward, especially with Bowden Barrett obviously coming to the Blues next year, who I can probably see spending most of the time at first five, given how the young fella at the back is going. I thought he was very, and I was about to get to O'Sullivan. Man, for a kid that's only 20 years old. Wow, 20. Let's not forget this, man. He's got some skills. That banana kick that he put in was amazing, and I actually thought just his kicking game, he just offers so much from the back. But if you're talking about a collective area where I thought the Blues were good throughout the whole 80 minutes, I thought that set piece scrum time, they just always had that edge, and I think they exerted pressure when they had to.
Yep. Yeah, look, I mean, I sort of thought, and the fact that with the Highlanders down on power in the back row, it really just made, Kira Hoskins and Dalton Papali'i really did shine and look good off the back of the tight five, power as well. Everything was set up for them, and they didn't let the team down. The three of them performed well, but just back to Zahn Sullivan, just something else to think about as well. I'm the same with you. I'm not a big Harry Plummer fan. Yeah, he's come on, really is a clutch performance last night. But to me, Zahn Sullivan, the way that he managed the field position territory, where he kicked to, the types of kicks that he put in play, they were great touches. And he said only 20, so he's only going to learn more and more. And then with someone like Bowden Barrett around him to sort of be a mentor and be the apprentice too, it's going to be he's got a you don't want to jinx him, but he's got a good future ahead of him.
He has. There's a good crop of fullbacks at the moment in New Zealand, though. So it's going to be But as you say, with Black leaving to Japan, when Bowden, I can still see that Plummer can have a role as a squad player for the Blues. But yeah,
absolutely
good first five, second five cover off the bench. So he's probably got those. He's probably got those strings to the bow. Let's be remiss of us not to mention that whole back three as a unit. Bryce Heem to me has been, man, talk about eat humble pie. I thought he was a mistake. I thought they would have been better off, going with Joseph Ratamavuki Nepkins as trying him. But him has been superb in TTSR, and also Mark Talia on the wing. Back to that form that we actually saw from him last year.
Yep, absolutely agreed. Hey, I just you put up the Nocturnals one with Perry Parkinson. I think he was a massive driving factor for the Highlanders. Massive driving factor, and I think he went off after the Highlanders got into the lead or just around that time, and I thought that it actually was quite a big impact when he went up for an HIA and didn't come back. So he was a massive loss for them. I mean, on the back of what Steve's alluded to many times is the fact is that the injuries that they already had, and then someone like Pari Parkinson, who was basically, I thought, their best player on the field, around the field anyway, because to be fair, Bryn Evans, I think, who came on, was pretty good at line-out time when he did come on. But Pari Parkinson, just massive. And I think there was one time I think it was Hoskins, he actually manhandled Jerome Kaino style back in the 2011 World Cup.
Yeah.
Picked him up and sort of took him backwards. Unfortunately, blotted us by slapping the ball out of Christie's hand from a offside position. I think it was that play.
Yeah, 12 tackles, none missed. A good night for Pari Parkinson. And into the Maori All Blacks. So it'll be interesting to see to watch him in those games. Bryce Heem, 3 clean breaks. Yep, he had a good night with the ball. Another person, but also Kiriwani, 11 carries, 1 clean break. Bills Pepperleahy, only 4 carries but 2 clean breaks. So 2, 11 carries, 4 clean breaks. Sorry, 2 clean breaks. But as you're saying there, a lot of real good work by that triumvirate back there that had the potential to have lost its balance with the loss of Tom Robinson, but still did very well.
You'd have to say, because that was a fear factor for a Blues fan, is the fact with Tom Robinson and the way that they'd actually created the combination there with him on the blind side, is that could have sort of caused a bit of an issue for the Blues. But you'd have to say that the 3 of them, well, not the 3 of them, 2 of them, because I thought Dalton Papali'i's been having a fantastic season anyway. But Hoskins and Akira haven't necessarily had the season that they would be absolutely wrapped with. I think they were better last year, but they stepped up for the final.
And we were talking about obviously off the back of that, the tight 5 was built off. And looking at the amount of strapping around Ethan Groot's knee and also Tokilahi's knee, wow. There's I don't think either of those two were playing fit either in that one. And so perhaps as you say, injuries to that front row didn't help the Highlanders, but still they were up against 4 All Blacks props. Well, actually 3, sorry, because one of them was injured.
3, because Renata.
Yeah, but still they played very well in that one. Rico Ioane, I mean, look, 11 carries, 44 meters, a couple of clean breaks, 3 defenders beaten. But whilst he had good stats, perhaps didn't actually see. It wasn't the eye-catching game from him.
I think you look at Rico. You can look at TJ and Bryce Heem when you look at some of those breaks that those players made. The problem that they have, and I think it's probably easy enough work on from them, is that they lose connection with their supporting players. So they make the break and then they need to throw a 50-50 pass because they've lost that connection. So I think it's an easy enough work on that they'll be able to do something about.
Yep. Patrick, again, big with Aaron saying there, a big game from him and perhaps a bit lucky that Josh Goodhue got the HIA so that Patrick could come back on. They're obviously not wishing anything on Goodhue, but I think it was good to have him come back to the finish. For the Highlanders, I mean, Hunt's been good all season, pretty much, and had another decent game. Nariki was kept quiet, someone who could have really blown this game out open. Michael Collins, though, 5 runs, 45 meters. I think he's as he heads off overseas, can be happy with his work this season.
Yeah, I go along with that. Got a bit of time for Michael Collins. He took a bit of stick from certain sections of the Blues supporters, and while he was up here, and that was because he was being pretty much played out of position. Always been a midfield back, so it's good to see him in the 13 jersey. Even, I think probably why we didn't see the midfielders, I think they probably both cancelled each other out to a certain extent last night. Probably, even somebody like Scott Gregory, how huge would that have been for him, playing his first season at this level at second 5, and then basically heading through to a final. Scotty had a solid enough game in the main, but probably he'll probably think about that crucial penalty from the Harry Plummer kick that he gave away. Probably just didn't clear himself quick enough. But on saying that, when I looked at it again, Pulley was being held in. But he'd already said, we spoke about the referee Fraser before, he'd put a line in the sand. Anybody who couldn't roll away quick enough, I was going to penalise you all night. So
that was from the first penalty of the game. Yeah,
that was from the very first penalty of the game. And Aaron Smith, once again, real quick, just to mention it, is this the standard that you're going to referee with? So it was really quick. So when you think about it, I don't know if this was at the beginning of the season going to be their actual midfield pairing, given some of the injuries that they've actually had. Remembering Nani Punavai also injured as well, and I think he probably would have been one of their starting midfielders. So it's good that they probably still got Gregory if they've got him signed again next year. But I think they'll have to maybe look around for a quality centre, or if somebody comes through NPC. Listen, they're just one of those blinking plucky sides that just don't know how to go away.
Down.
And man, I give them credit, but you know what? It wasn't their night. They got beaten by the better side, no matter what may some Highlander supporters around the country might think. We mentioned Putty Parkinson before. I thought he was very good. It was quite noticeable. Ash Dixon is one hell of a player, but it's noticeable when Coltman is on, the scrum's actually a bit stronger. But it's one of those two evils.
But what's happened to Coltman?
Not so great at the throwing in, where Ash Dixon is good and probably a little bit better around the paddock. But to be fair to Coltman, he did get the odd turnover, but boy, missed his darts on a couple of occasions, which were crucial.
What's happened to Coltman? Because a couple of years ago, he was the guy that was the dynamo around the field. And he's really not sticking out like he did in terms of the open play. So, yeah, I don't know. But I actually wanted to ask you something else, Steve. Why does mate Scott Gregory chuck in the sevens? Because he was actually one of the stars in that sevens side. Is it just the whole COVID scenario? Is it pre-COVID that he actually decided he was going to put it in with 15?
I think he was a bit of an outer. He was probably seen as an outer squad member who could probably, because what you don't realise with Scott, he's a sizable guy, and they've put a few extra kgs on him. To be honest, I'm a little annoyed at Northland that they played him at fullback last year, because to me that was a missed opportunity to play him in the midfield from last year, because given the way second fives are falling over at the moment, who the heck knows? To me, still probably got a few things to learn in and around sort of attack and also defence. And what I mean by that is probably just getting himself in the right place. But in his first season, hey, I reckon he's done all right. Bit of a revelation. I sent a message. I messaged him today congratulating him on his season, and he came back to me and he said, listen, that was great. And he said, to play in a final in front of his family was just sort of next level. I also messaged him that Auckland was closer to Whangarei as well, but he hasn't got back to me on that. So, but that might be just pushing my luck a little bit.
No, absolutely. And I was just having a quick look at the
again
the Highlanders squad. Look at who's officially out. So in Jermaine Ainsley, in the forwards, it's mainly backs they're missing in there with Fatui, Pi, Amanga Jensen, Timu, Colin Basham obviously was good. Freedom Vernacolo in there. Punavai you've mentioned. Neymar Scudders obviously has stepped down to Heartland Championship level.
Daniel Leonard Brown in the front row.
Oh yeah, Daniel Leonard Brown in the front row.
They've got a few missing. Thomas Umanga Jensen was probably a guy that was him and Punavai were probably being looked at their probably their midfield or the young guys moving forward. The good thing about it, those guys I would imagine will probably be back next year. So
next year
they'll have a bit of depth. And the thing I love about my favourite competition, the NPC, it brings up players come from out of the woodwork. And that's the great thing about that comp. Yeah, Matt Fettis is supposedly back for Otago as well at NPC. He'll be really good value. We know what a good player he can be.
Yep. So there you go, boys. We've kind of had a bit of a roundabout the houses chat about the game this evening. Any final points you would like to make?
Oh no! Look, it's just great to sort of be a champion.
Yeah, absolutely. I go along with Ashwin. I know I play the devil's advocate a little bit, but I kind of like to add a little bit of balance. And when you see how happy on the social network a lot of Blues supporters are, and like I say, it's long suffering is very, very appropriate. But I do believe moving forward, if the Blues basically are looking to create a dynasty as half as good as the Crusaders, I still think there's a lot of work to do. But hey, it's a lot better to do that work on the back of winning a title than it is
rebuilding again.
I still think at the end of the day, the Crusaders are still probably the benchmark team that we want to aspire to, and we know how good it'll irritate them no end, which is kind of a good thing. Down at Christchurch HQ, but you know what? I think this team, you chuck in Barrett to Avasa Sheck next year. You get Caleb Clark. Man, there's going to be some unlucky guys not being able to play, but I think that second 5 position for the Blues moving forward is going to be a real interesting one. Do they give to Avasa Sheck a run at second 5 during Auckland's NPC and just see how he goes, or does somebody like a Corey Evans, who's in the New Zealand under-20s, is he going to be the next thing? He's definitely got all the skills, completely different type of second 5 to TJ Fiani. It reminds me more of a Lee Stensness type second 5.
Actually, before we go, we should actually, TJ Fiani obviously moved, one of the players that's moving on. You notice the difference when he's in that number 12 jersey and how well their backline operates. I'm not saying it's a well-oiled machine, but it was profusely dysfunctional when you had, a Terry at 10, then Plummer at 12, and Rico at 13. That there was no gelling there at all. As soon as TJ came back and obviously got a game and a half under his belt, so to speak, because he'd been out for a while, that backline started to get some level of functionality into it. So he's going to actually be somewhat of a loss to the Blues organization for next year. They are going to have to find somebody that's going to be a bit of that glue in that 12 jersey.
Yep. So as we say, the Blues deserved winners of the Super Rugby Trans-Tasman, even if it was a COVID finances style sized cup at the end there, a bit smaller than we normally have. And do join us on Tuesday evening when we will have the All Blacks squad to discuss on the Driving Maul show, and also we can discuss the Maori All Blacks squad at the same time, looking at who's been selected into each of those positions. It's been interesting seeing a few comments on social media about could Ash Dixon make the All Blacks? Well, no, he's already been picked for the Maori All Blacks. It's pretty clear. If players have been picked for the Maori All Blacks, they've been released already. Clayton McMillan has been told, you can have these guys, we're not using them. Yes, anyone who's been picked for the Maori All Blacks will not be picked for the All Blacks, pretty clear. But we'll discuss that all on Tuesday night at 8 p.m. So do join us then for the Driving Maul show. Thank you, Ashwin. Thank you, Stephen.